Hello, Zach.
Hello, Jeff.
Thanks for joining me again.
Absolutely. It's been a long time.
It's been a long, long time. So, anything new happened between last time we talked and now?
Oh, I read another book.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no. We could talk about another book, but I haven't. No. It's not a lot's happened in between now and then, if I'm being honest.
Well, these any exciting books or TV shows or any media or games or anything notable?
Yeah, I'll talk about another book. How about that? I
All right.
read last week I read a book called The Nazi Hunters.
Whoa.
Um, which is kind of a false title. But it's a great book nonetheless. It's a book about a British SAS force dropped into occupied France and does incredible things, but ends up losing like half their force to Nazis, especially SS officers, concentration camps, things like that. That's like the first two-thirds of the book. And then the last third of the book is post-war. Um, the SAS is in jeopardy. Churchill's trying to keep it alive. The rest of the government is trying to shut down the SAS completely. Nobody likes them. Everybody thinks that they're a wartime necessity, but not fit for peacetime operation, that sort of thing. And in the middle of all of this, like questionable, like, are we even going to exist anymore? And then when they actually do get shut down, they go rogue for a time. The same group of guys managed to recover the bodies, find the bodies of every single one of their uh, brothers in arms who went missing, which is like I think like 18 plus individuals. They find every single one of them in various locations, sometimes just on the side of the mountain in a ditch, but they were able to figure it out. And then they hunt down and arrest and try and imprison or execute, not them doing all that, but like they managed to find these SS officers and concentration camp overseers and whatever, and bring almost every single person who had an authoritative hand in their companion's death to justice.
So, what I think in general, death in role-playing games is, especially like D&DS games, is handled very poorly.
Mm,
Somebody dies, it's like, so what? But
mhm.
how much would it be like, you're in a campaign, somebody dies, you're carrying that body back to the widow. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's like multiple people die, you're like, this is the number one thing.
yeah,
I think, or reverse, like we had people die that of our companions in this thing. We're going to recover the body. That's the only thing is recovering those bodies. That's the most important thing.
yeah.
And I think that there is so much really neat story that could be had, um, with things along those lines.
I think that Twilight 2000 can do a pretty good job of getting you there.
Yeah,
It has the gravitas, the weight, and I think that there's probably other games that have that same thing. But like, yeah, the key is don't play a corny game. Don't like D&D, rightly so, and it's fantastic for it. But like D&D and its tendril projects systems typically have a level of tomfoolery kind of
right.
baked in. And I think once you carve that out, I think it'd be easier to do this. Yeah, but I agree. Like, there's a lot of like, death doesn't matter in all those games, either because it's non-existent or because it's so prevalent and shrugged off, right? Like, it's just it comes with the territory to some extent, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting, and I also like the whole idea of the subterfuge, revenge slash justice angle as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's very cool. Like, I mean, they're doing so much crazy stuff, Jeff. Like, that's the thing. Like, so Germany is split up between different allied forces at the end of the war, right? Like there's Germany occupied by France, there's Germany occupied by the British, there's by the Americans and by the Russians.
Yeah.
And then these rogue SAS officers are pretending that they're not rogue to get into certain places. And then at one point, they find out that one of the guys that they're after is across into Russian occupied Germany. and they like stage a basically it's a heist, but an extraction mission to get this guy out of there, out of his little cabin in the woods, and take it back home. So yeah, it's just crazy.
I've never played Night's Black Agents, but I'm wondering, removing the vampires, if you could do something that would be a system that would be easily baked
Maybe,
into do something like that. So
maybe, yeah,
yeah, so I think no, that's really cool. I think the other problem is when you get into fantasy, like I think right now, I think in real life, like Nazis, it's very easy to get behind they're bad.
yeah,
And they're like, and that, and I think, but if you're like, and the idea is like, we're not going to let we're part of a war that we feel is just, we'll say, I don't want to say holy, but like a holy war. Like this is right or wrong. Germany is evil. Our
yeah,
people have died. We're not, they have done a sacred duty.
yeah,
We will not fail them
yeah.
in death. It's hard to kind of find something along similar lines, I think, to emotionally hold on to, in a fantasy world where it's like the big bad guy doesn't necessarily have that kind of weight, but Nazis, it just everybody just can rally behind that.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point too. Like, yeah, like do your bad guys, are they shallow bad?
Yeah,
And shallow bad, it's hard to get riled up to a certain level about and to care as much about, right? Even if they're committing atrocities, are they, is there layers to the atrocities, to the propaganda that make it uh, despicable in your gut, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Or
I
in your
think
stomach.
I mean the Empire and Star Wars kind of sort of hits that where everybody can kind of rally behind, but it's not the same level
Yeah.
because I think
What and whatever amount it does have, I think, is because it leans into
yes,
Nazi motifs in
it does.
its visuals. So,
So what I've seen is a crazy British TV show. It's pretty fantastic. It's called The Detectorists.
the Detectorists. Wow, I have not heard of this. Yeah.
It is, I think it's 3 seasons. They're short. They are very mundane, and it centers around two. The two main characters are friends, and they do metal detecting,
Okay.
and it's kind of ties in with things going on in their lives and people and trying to figure out, problems that they've got. And it's very like the stakes aren't like super high,
hmm
but it is an absolutely fantastic series. They're only like less than 30 minutes apiece.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I buy into that. That's cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and but there is a monologue the character does at the end. Andy does on the first season. It's pretty fantastic, and the idea was uh, the or not Andy is Lance, but Andy says he was kind of disappointed that his wife or his girlfriend doesn't get him metal
uh,
detecting, and so then Lance goes into this monologue about men and their hobbies. It's like it was really pretty fantastic. Like we
mm,
don't, that's not necessarily what we really want. We can't expect that. In
yeah.
kind of the drive that we have, which is pretty fantastic. But anyway, if you're looking for just a calm show to watch, it's pretty. I'd say it's pretty emotional too, and it's very well acted. The Detectorists.
Where can people find the Detectorists?
Freevee, I guess, is where we watched it.
Easy.
Oh no, it's
Nice.
on Amazon now too. I think they just
Okay.
brought it onto Amazon.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds right up my alley. That feels like a History Channel um opportunity too, right? Like depending on what they're finding and how they're flavoring it,
Well,
but
I don't want to give anything away, but the idea is that around here, if we've got, have you ever known anybody to have a metal detector?
yeah, yeah.
What are they going to find?
Like in my neck of the woods, maybe they're really like a Civil War buff and they're looking for like Civil War artifacts or something like that. But
Yeah.
that's like the deep level.
Yes, that's the most people go around. It used to be fairgrounds when I was younger,
Yeah.
looking for change that got dropped.
Yeah, yeah.
So There, they got Roman artifacts. They got Celtic artifacts. They've got artifacts that go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and the idea is Roman gold. If you can get Roman gold, that is it. And
Mm,
and so so there is the aspect is that you know they are, I think, because they're detectorists, they are looked down by the academic community. So,
uh-huh.
in a sense, they're passionate people who realize they're not necessarily well thought of.
Yeah.
And then there's some bad people who are called nighthawks. I think you're allowed to detect during certain times and certain things. So these people must go out at night and go on land they're not allowed
Those
to go on.
bastards. Yeah.
Yes,
I already hate
exactly.
them. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's kind of, one guy trying to get, they're trying to legitimize their passion in a way, and have
Yeah.
respect. But it's funny. It's very funny. It's very dry British humor. It's
Yeah.
they're quirky characters. Um,
I'm on
and
board. Say no more. Sign me up. Yeah.
and the theme song is a little folk ditty that somebody wrote, and it's fantastic. And they play it at the beginning and the end, and then it's kind of funny how the repetition grows on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyhow, but there's no RPG. I don't know if there's really much as far as art. I guess there could be, but I don't know if I can find any direct correlation for RPGs. But
Well, I'll tell you, like, I think that I was just talking about this with my doppelganger, Shadow Zach Goings. Um, and we were talking about how, like, we don't think that your audience maybe can help us out here, Jeff. We were like, both of us don't feel like there is a fantasy RPG that we have found yet that speaks directly to what we want in a game. Because for us, both of us care about, we want to go down into dungeons and find artifacts or pieces of artifacts, and the leveling process is improving your gear, modifying gear, and discovering cool, artifact level or relic level gear, and that's the progression as opposed to I'm a thief and I'm level 12, or you know I'm level 3 or whatever. I don't care. Like, just the idea of like the discovery of artifacts is what really excites us, and we want that to be the loop that you're pushing towards and the thing that is a regular occurrence as opposed to anything else. And so I would speak to, like, when you say the detectorist, I'm like, that's exactly what, that's on a smaller scale and in a modern setting, but that's exactly what I want out of my general fantasy game.
I think with fantasy, it could be harder to do that than it would be with the like science fantasy.
Yeah, like a Fallout or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, or even like weird alien stuff. So
Hmm.
the idea is somebody, and I think in some ways it's not fulfilling what you're wanting, but the idea is for the Blood Sands is to be ideas where you could have rules for rolling, for exploring and finding things. Now, the next thing would be is what kind of mechanic would you have where you could take things and what they are is maybe of no use, but the things you can scrape out of there and
Yeah.
modify is where the value is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think all of that is exciting to me. So yeah, fully. I'm invested. Like, I promise you, I'm gonna go look up this show over the next few days and watch it because yeah, it sounds great.
Okay, so I think the topic of the day is printing books.
Hmm.
And I think part of it is monologue is not good for a show, but you know, I've been on a journey for publishing or getting books printed. I don't know. Have you done a lot of? I know you've done some Mixam and a few other things. Have you like what have been your experiences for book
Yep.
printing?
So I have done, I think, one. So I've done Mixam, I've done Printivity, I've done not books specifically, but game related stuff with Board Game Maker. I've
Like
done
what? Wait a minute. Like what?
card decks, chipboard, like tokens, things like that. Um, I've done Print Ninja, which is an overseas printer, and then I'm currently working with Longpack and StandArt, which are both also overseas
Standard.
book printers. Yeah, StandArt Impressa is what they're called. Lithuanian
Yeah,
printer.
the guy, the guy ghosted me. A
Oh yeah.
salesperson ghosted me.
Oh,
Yes,
uh, for
and I
shame.
don't understand why.
Yeah. Uh, darn Europeans.
Well, what
They're,
happens? I got a quote, and I was like, well, for this one, I'm not going to do, because I just was shout
yeah.
dark. And then he's like, sorry to hear that. And I was like, he says, you probably won't be doing business. And no, I still plan, just right now. I just can't do that. And then I sent out quotes for other books, no response. Then went to their website and put a new,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
versus quote, still got nothing.
Uh-huh. Hmm. Hmm.
But other people have had
Interesting.
no problems, so I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't, I certainly there are plenty of people who have had more experience than I have, but I think I kind of have touch points with several different areas of the space. So,
Well, I'll tell you, if you can, the books from Lithuania are, I mean, you can get them landed quite a bit cheaper,
yep.
a lot cheaper. So the cards, where have you gotten cards made?
So I did there's a site called there's cheaper sites than this, and I would and right now we're actually gonna be I'm working on some cards with I think Longpack. But Board Game Maker isn't a bad place. BoardGamesMaker.com, and then they have I think a sister site called Card Games Maker or something. But you just go to Board Games Maker and it'll get you where you need to go. And they have all sorts of card sizes. They have, options for, whether you want to just make playing cards or you want to do completely new designs on both sides, different card deck, like the boxes for them, anything from tuck boxes to specialty types of folding tuck boxes to like the more like rigid boxes that with a top and a bottom, or I mean there's tons of options when it comes to that. And then you can also like they have the other thing I like about their site is it doesn't typically require a quote with an email. Like I can just get on their site and price it all out, know what all the price point price breaks are. So like I'm staring at one right now for tarot cards, and like at a 27 card deck, I know that if I want 50 to 100 of them, it's $12. But if I go above 100, they go down to 11.50, and if I go to 250, they're $10, right? Like I can kind of piece that together, and then I can just with a simple drop down, I can say, oh, well, packaging, let's swap it from shrink wrapped to a custom magnetic book box, and I can find out what that would do to the pricing within a couple moments.
Because I've thought about, I mean, you can do the same thing with, I think, with drive-through.
Yep. Drive through. I have never gotten cards in from drive through. But I'm always like drive through. I just really don't like for print products typically, so I just end up staying away, even though I know they can do cards. I even have one of their cards. One of their reps gave me like a set of cards from them, and I was just like, not the level of card that I
Uh,
want. And also, I think the margins even just weren't where I wanted or needed them to be.
I knew
So,
they could. I've never really expressed, and there are things. I mean, there's so many neat things you could do with cards. In fact, in my mind, I think I would be happy if all the RPGs that I would play would somehow integrate cards into the mechanics
yep,
or into something in the game.
yep.
There's something fantastic about cards.
I've done what's called an Oracle deck, but it had mechanics to it. So it's like a tarot size card deck, but it's big and it has like it's driven and it doesn't have your typical tarot cards. I've done square cards that are lay out a dungeon, and they not only lay out a dungeon but they tell a story within the dungeon, and so how you draw the cards matters. And then I've done what are called mini cards, which are like they're ratioed like a playing card, but they're smaller. And I did an adventure on board a ship where each room of the ship was modified by drawing cards from the decks. And yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I love a good card deck that enhances. some facet of your game.
Yeah, and I think it's fun for to hand out to players, and players can, however it works. I mean, it's just, um, yeah, it's just a good, fantastic thing to do. So I've not. That's something I'm gonna like to look into, though. At that point, though, and I think I've been using medium mail, but once you put the cards in, you're no longer shipping medium mail.
Well, depends on how spicy you like to live life.
I got a good relationship, I think, with the post office here. So I think as long as they, uh,
Because it feels like a package that has a book in it, and it looks like a package that has a book in it. They're probably not going to say, "Does this have cards in it?" Yeah,
yeah, especially when I think when you're taking a whole load of them at one time, they're not gonna.
yeah,
Uh, so
yeah,
so I need to. That's something I want to look into. Of course, that's I've got the idea I want cards without actually thinking what the mechanic's going to be. But I think like NPCs and stuff,
yeah,
they're pretty fantastic.
yeah.
Um, just or even I think with the newest version of D&D 2024, I think they have a starter set, and I think they're saying they're using like different cards that you can maybe not put on a
Hand
tray, but
out.
put on a tableau and then just create your character quickly.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, yeah. I've seen some of their like pre-gens that are on like a not a not like a playing card, but it's only like a 5x7 piece of paper that they've done, and like even that's cool. And that's what we're doing with Shadow Dark, working on with a couple other guys, a deck of regions for Shadow Dark that are the complete character ready to go on a tarot sized card. And there's some other cool facets to it. It's not just that, but yeah, I mean, I'm all about a cool card accessory.
Yeah, I think, it'd probably be too much, but like for random, if it's a flat, if there's no curve, it's flat, you could do like random encounters with cards would be an easy
Hmm.
way of doing it, But the problem
Hmm.
is most of those you're going to have some sort of use some sort of curve on it, so it doesn't necessarily because you're still gonna have to roll and then figure out. But boy, it'd be handy to know. It's like, oh, you encountered 10 goblins, or whoop,
Yeah, yeah.
unless you created enough cards to capture that whole
Because
variation.
the truth is that a card deck is just a replacement for a roll table, almost always.
Yeah,
Like I can't think of a time when you couldn't do the same thing with a roll table, but sometimes it's better to quickly communicate with cards. Like generating a dungeon, better to have cards because you can just lay them out and the dungeon gets is visually represented as well. You know, but yeah, I think like an encounter deck is serves the same function as an encounter table, but visually there's a suspense level for the players that maybe is different for drawing a card. Um, and especially if you have different levels of encounters. And so like, telling a player you need to draw from the level 3 deck or whatever. Like that could be like a suspense moment that is enhanced for your session.
yeah, like pray for a flump because
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's and I think that but the other thing is if it's done right, you're immediately there. It's not like I roll, it says goblin, then I go to it says this, and I have to open up. It's like if you have the
Right.
stats right there, everything you
That'd
need
be
right
nice.
there,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's
exactly.
no or the other option would be if you could if you didn't have the stats, maybe have like you pull up the card, then maybe that card has several options. So you could maybe fold it like so you're still creating a table. But yeah. Anyway, there's
So many.
so many different things. So anyway, yeah, I'll have to keep that in mind. The so board games maker
Yeah, yeah.
and go down that rabbit hole. And
Okay.
so and then you said you also did chits.
Yeah, that's my nightmare. There's not a good answer in the States for chits that I have found. I got brutalized on like punchboard tokens of chits through this. the where it's gonna burn you. It doesn't feel that bad when you look on the sites or when you talk domestically to different people who can make them. It's gonna be like, oh, that's feasible. I think I can figure that out. I was doing it for a box set. Harken back to our last episode. But doing it for a box set, and I was like, oh, well, surely this was ignorant Zach speaking, but surely I can get punchboard tokens, like each sheet would be $1 or less at 500 plus. Like surely it's not that expensive. And I talked to a few people and they're like, yeah, $1 at most, right? And then when I got into it, the thing that's going to eat you alive is shipping. Not just shipping the box set to the customer, but shipping those punchboard tokens to your door is awful.
Because they're heavy.
They're heavy, exactly, and they are because they have dimension to them, right? It fewer than you think to fill up a pallet,
Right.
right? And I want to say, so I ordered, I think, 800 sets of these, and I believe that shipping was 2 grand. And I just, like it was just like obviously like you don't know until you go through the checkout process, at least through where we went, but you're like pricing it out and you're like, oh yeah, it is like $1. I'm gonna
Yeah,
be
five hundred
fine, whatever.
bucks, no problem. I can do this all day
Yeah,
long.
yeah, exactly.
Every
And then
project I'll do this.
you go to checkout and you're like, oh, my $1,000 purchase for 800 sets turned into $3,000. What happened? Oh, it's shipping. Oh, and there's no wiggle room. Okay, well, that's awful. So, yeah, I think now I'll tell you outside the US, if you go to with Longpacker, a Chinese manufacturer, a manufacturer overseas in general, chipboard is like punchboard tokens are nothing. Like they cost so little. And shipping isn't nearly as bad. So I would say like that would be my answer, but only if you're wanting to order like 1,000 plus sets or whatever, right? Like don't. It's not feasible for less than that typically.
No, because I think, they're die cut. So either you may get lucky and find, I mean, you're either going to make your tokens to, I guess, a preset die, or they're going to have to create a die.
Well, so you can create like what I did was like I needed sheets, right? Like so like the box set was like 8.5 by 11 sized or whatever. So I needed 8 by 10 sheets. And on that sheet I could do whatever I wanted. I could do whatever shapes as long as the space between each sheet, each cut was like quarter inch. I could fill that thing with whatever shapes I wanted because you're as part of your art file, you're sending them a cut line file too, right? And so then the machine just auto cuts everything for them. Um,
So they're not die cut then.
they're
They're
whatever
not creating a die then.
they're cut. You're an engineer, Jeff. I'm an ignorant person. So
So,
um,
okay, it's like cookie stamps?
yes, yes,
So
yes,
that'd be a
yes,
die stamping, as
yes.
opposed to taking a knife and cutting out the cookie.
Yes. Okay. Very, very good. And I would also say that I want to be clear for folks that like I'm ordering sheets of tokens. And when I'm talking about cost per unit, that's what we're talking about is units being a sheet. If you're needing just a bunch of chip like tokens and they're all the same, like maybe you want
Yeah.
to like you want this coin icon and you want people to be able to count them or whatever. That's a whole different ballgame I would figure because you pack a billion of those on one sheet and then when you get them you're getting a ton of units for what it like it's probably the math probably works out a little bit different but so just kind of keep that in mind that when I'm talking about this I'm not saying like oh it's $1 for a couple circles it's like an 8 by 10 sheet of custom cut full color print double-sided tokens.
Yeah, so I think if you're, yeah, I think with China, since they do so many of them, they probably have set dies. You provide your file, and they can just. So the nice thing about dies, once you have the die made, the expense is in the die. Once
Yeah.
the die is made, it's ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
Yeah,
chunk,
exactly.
and where the
Exactly.
other one it's like takes like maybe a minute to cut. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
and
I
so in China they probably have plenty of manufacturers, and they and paper's cheap, and they're able just to plow through those simple jobs
yeah,
very economically.
I have no idea. And you're almost certainly right. I just know that like it's been a couple of years since I've done this, but I would not touch. I've just kind of written off punchboard tokens as something that I'm willing to do at this point for
So one thing
unless.
I haven't done yet is I'm thinking about doing, which is a much simpler version of that, is I was thinking about doing paper minis.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
I just don't know. And I was thinking about with all the art files for the blood sands, Denizens of the blood sands, taking all those art files and then creating paper minis.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know how much appetite there is for paper minis, but
I don't know. Yeah, or wooden minis. I see a lot of those coming out, or acrylic minis. Like, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the nice thing about doing all the work for paper minis is that you're also then setting up, you could basically do the same amount of work and get VTT tokens and all that. So you could have an art bundle for VTT on that side too. But like, yeah, I don't know what the demand levels are for that sort of a thing.
hmm. So anyway, so chits, that's so only go if you know exactly what you're doing. Otherwise, you may be
Be ready
either
for shipping costs.
for
Yes.
shipping costs, you may or tariffs. So who
Yeah.
knows? But my goodness, it's that's crazy. So so I've been on the journey. So I mean, for printing books, I mean, there's, and I thought I would kind of share with people some of the things I've gone through and some stuff I've figured out, but I still haven't figured everything out because it's a compli this whole thing's very complicated.
Yeah.
The easiest way to publish a book is just to generate a PDF
Yeah.
and just say PDF only.
Yeah.
Second easiest thing would be is to set up your drive-through,
Oh,
which is complicated.
I strongly disagree with that, but go on. Yeah,
Well, let me
yeah,
see. Theoretically,
yeah.
is you set one up and then you set up your drive-through, and then people just
Then you set it
order.
up again, and then you set it up again, and then you set it up again, and then you set it up again, and then you get done setting it up, and then you realize that you had to degrade your file so much to get it on drive-through that you need to rebuild it again to put it anywhere else.
Well, you
So,
know that you say that I've tried. I think I tried once, and I got too frustrated, and I've determined never to ever do that.
oh
Um,
my gosh, like I wish we get Andrew Bashinsky on here at some point to talk about this with me in detail, but like, or just him. But like, we did a book through drive-through that looked amazing, and I got a print proof of it through Mixing, and it was like great, perfect. And then I sent it to drive-through, and like all the colors and everything was messed up. Like the cover was off, like the angle of it was off, like all these like nightmare level, and like it took every time I want a new proof, it was like $35. And I spent $35 at least four times because they like it would be like, hey, the colors on this are wrong. Well, you need to do this with your art file. Oh, you need to like save it as an older format. Oh, you need to do this. Oh, you need to do that. And I'm like, do you not have a way of like anyhow, I just say to say you're degrading your file by putting it on drive-through. Their 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 printers are awful. And you should never take that file and then put it into another printer. So you're doing the same work twice. So I just just save yourself a headache and don't do it.
don't do it. Well,
There you go.
we'll assume it's a, if there was a if this did work, which I've never done it because I'm frustrated. There are people who are able to
There are
do
people that
black and
do
white,
it. Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think it's mainly black and white. So maybe the colors. I don't know. All I know is the interface is horrible. It was very confusing, and I didn't need a third because I already am going to do it two other different ways. I didn't want a third way. It just wasn't worth the emotional, intellectual energy that it was going to take.
Yeah.
And I grew very frustrated with the archaic. Let's face it, the publisher end of drive-through is still crappy. It is like 19, it was high technology probably in 2003.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And um, not only that, but if you're listening to this and you haven't heard, they're raising their prices again by 40%. So it's gonna be, you might as well do one of the other great options that Jeff's gonna tell you about for print on
Yes.
demand here shortly.
Yes. So right. So the idea is, having to print something, there's a certain, if you do print on demand, you can keep your costs low. Not keep your costs, but you don't have to have an outlay of um, of money for this. But the other option is print on demand, which you can do. I mean, which I use. Lulu is um, my biggest. It's pretty key, though. I'm actually made change. So I use Lulu print on demand mainly because it allows me to affordably provide product to overseas without
Yeah,
large shipping costs.
yeah. Really smart move too. Like that's a great card to have in your pocket or up your sleeve or wherever you keep a card.
Yeah.
Um, to be able to offer affordable rates for international really helps your projects.
So Lulu, they're changing the rates for shipping. They're going up for shipping. The,
Hmm.
their costs, I don't know, I don't think their paper costs have gone up, but they're going to be changing. But up until now, yeah, the UK was no different than shipping to the US and I in Australia and all that was it's all very reasonable. So in general, the UK is the cheapest, the EU is the next cheapest, and then once you get past that, it's could be $10 or $13, depends
Yeah.
where you're at for shipping. So it's a whole lot cheaper than shipping from the US. And the other problem, if you ship from the US, then you have to do the harmonization
Yeah.
code, and then EU's also has new safety and I don't know whatever rules. It's you have to with your product, you have to have some sort of broker that's tied to safety and documentation. It's just like it's insane. So
Hmm.
maybe your a book will safely arrive, but if I think in some countries if it doesn't have that, your product's not going to make it in the country. So,
Hmm.
so by being able to print it within the country, the EU, like if you do something like Lulu, they're handling that.
Yeah.
Where if you
Yeah.
do it on your own, um, that then it doesn't. So,
Yeah.
but Mixam also offers an ability to do. They are print on demand,
Hmm.
and you can individually ship. It's a hassle if you were to ship individually to different people. So like there's a times for proof copies. I sent you proof copies and I sent Bob proof copies. And I was able to split my shipment, but I mean, it was kind of a hassle to
Hmm.
time wise. So if you're just doing it for a few people, it's not bad, but you're trying to do it for 75 people, then it's a different animal.
Hmm. Hmm.
But they do have the new link. What's it called? There where you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Where basically you can just give people a link and they can go buy it, do it themselves, pay for the whatever, the shipping themselves and go.
Yeah, so theoretically, you can, I think, upload so with Lulu, you can upload an Excel file, a CVS with addresses and such to automatically do it. I wasn't able to figure that out with the link.
Print
Um,
link is what they call it.
print link, yes.
Yeah.
So I got a book set up. I need to go back. I think because I had to get accepted. Um, so it's kind of scary if you don't know I mean, the shipping can get kind of wild. So.
Hmm.
And spreadsheets kind of scare me because, it's like it's like they so I don't know if you've ever dealt with foreign addresses, but they can get things don't always line up like you think they're going to. I don't know if you ever experienced
Yes, 100%. Yes, often. And you sit there and you're like, does this go on the zip code area, or does this go over
is
here?
this the
Or,
county? Is this the state? Is
yeah,
this
and we're
the
trying to apply American terminology, and
yes.
often the cells in the order form or whatever shipping form are Americanized, and we're trying to feel like, what is the equivalent of an American county for Portugal or whatever?
Yes,
And you're like, I don't
Italy's the
know.
worst because they've got like I don't know, like 30 of them, and it's a
Hmm.
two-digit code, and then you're trying to then you're trying to look through, and you're like, well, several of these could fit that. It's a B
Yeah.
and an E. It's like,
Yeah. A lot of times I just like look up like what how to mail something from the US to Italy. And I look at the example, I'm like, I'm just gonna base it off that and
yeah, and you can get
call it
county
good.
codes through there's some places that have lists of them that help.
Okay, yeah.
But I've also just Googled. I just drop into Google and see what Google
Yeah,
will
yeah,
give
yeah.
me.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what was the weird one of the weirdest things I found out was there was a place called Jersey, and the address looked French.
Hmm. Hmm.
So Jersey apparently is a British island off the coast of France.
Oh, interesting. Wow. That's crazy.
Yes, it is
Um,
crazy.
so you have Mixam print on demand that you're noodling with, and you have Lulu. But you tried, was it Amazon that you've also tried, or something else that you've tried the print on demand services?
No, I've not done Amazon. Yeah, the Mixam works pretty so Mixam's pretty slick. So Mixam, if you upload, if you're doing a zine, you do not need a separate cover file. You can just
Yeah,
upload
go
it.
nuts. Yeah.
But if you do Lulu, the cover file's separate.
Yeah. Though I will recommend that anybody that has not used Mixam before, open a line of dialogue with them, either in their messaging or on a call with every project, and get them to tell you that the cover or whatever looks great. Because they often that it won't, especially when you're dealing with a spine. Like you wanna have a conversation. Um, but yeah, Mixam. And I would, while we're talking about this, Printivity is a great like Mixam alternative. Not for print on demand, but just for like small batch or like soft cover printing in general. Like go in, check out Printivity. A lot sometimes their prices will be slightly higher, and every once in a while you'll see that they're slightly lower, but also they have a lot of options. So you might, if you're looking to do something very specific and Mixam doesn't have it, you might check Printivity for that too. And they're also domestic here in the States. So.
Yeah, I need to check those out. I also found that it's kind of interesting with Mixam, even though I mean, they're using different printers, but what I
Mhm.
find unusual is the way they're boxed and shipped. So like you order if it comes from Canada, it's usually boxed very well. They're usually already sealed in in packets of like generally 40, and the boxes are very sturdy and they got foam. But it comes from the US, like your Tangled in Shrouds.
Yeah,
Box is split open. It's just all the
it
books
all
together,
depends.
no
Yeah.
separation. I'm like, good night. I've had that with my books the same way. Almost every mix-in box that comes from the U that's a US print, the boxes have been split open.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
Generally, I've not had much as far as damage, but occasionally we do. So, but anyway, so Mixam's is a good. I'll have to try the Printivity, and I think we've also found surprisingly noodling around with Mixam that some options are extremely well like the hardcovers. We switched over to A5 for hardcovers. All of a sudden, it was like quite a bit cheaper than say Lulu, and it was kind
Hmm.
of surprising that certain size formats.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, like do if you have a couple, always compare it. Even if it's like Mixam is typically and it's sometimes it's like crazy the difference. Like at one point on Mixam, ordering an A4 zine was like 50% higher cost than ordering a 5.5 by 8.5 zine. So it was like, do you really care about being true A4? Because you could save a lot of money by
Yeah.
just going to 5.5 by 8.5. And I don't know if that's still fully true. I think they've adjusted some of their pricing and a lot of that's not there anymore. But like, yeah, exactly. Like you never know who's going to have the best rate, and having a few to compare with might save you, a few $100.
Yeah, it's shocking because Lulu, I think the hardcover we're looking at was like, I can't remember, is stupid, like $40 or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whoa, well, look at the mix, Sam. It's just like it was like, I don't know, like 10 or 12. I can't remember what the number was, but it just goes to show that you can't just assume across the board that, something. In fact, knowing that changed my thinking on. So I ordered a proof copy through Mixam because of that. Um, Even though I'm going to be using of a off press because
Hmm.
it was cheap enough. But so yeah, and I think before you engage in a project, even though numbers can change, it's good to understand, I think, what the various companies, what those costs will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because really also, prices go up, it's easy to lose money quickly.
Yes. I would say, just as like, because we're kind of talking about, we're at the point of getting to talk about outside of like small batch printing, right? I talked about Printivity, Mixam, Lulu. That's just kind of print on demand slash small batch. And I would say when I start looking elsewhere is typically around 500 copies. Um, but you might start looking elsewhere, but at 1,000 copies, you definitely want to be starting to look elsewhere. Um,
Well, and what's also I find interesting, like just say you want Smythe sewn.
yeah.
That's an option on Mixam.
Hmm.
But what I've found is you can play with quantities, yeah, quantities before, like, offset printing is an option on Mixam and your Smythe Zone and batch. But the point is, what's very strange is, if I recall correctly, like it's easier to hit a threshold for the better quality at certain sizes than it is others. And some you'll
Yep.
never reach it. Like they'll never offer, the offset press for something, but others you can get at a lower volume to get that offset press.
Yeah.
And it has to do with, I think 8.5 by 11 works out the best. Some will like, or
Hmm.
maybe it's 6 by 9,
Yeah.
but it's strange. So you really need to play around those numbers, and those are going to be, dependent on that particular company for whatever reason. The way
Hmm.
they buy paper, the way their machines work, that's um, how that's determined. But you can't assume across the board anything.
Hmm.
So I was
Hmm.
wanting to do 6 by 9, I think would be a nice format, but also found out that it's price difference is the same as an 8.5 by 11.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
But the nice
just,
thing about all the places that we talked about so far, I believe, is that it's really easy to get pricing and you can noodle around with it on your own, and it's not going to take a ton of back and forth, back and forth. So for if you want, like you could do everything that we just talked about, you could find out for your own project in an hour or two just by logging onto these different sites, and you could figure it all out across all of them.
yeah, and where that will change is when you go to an offset press. If you're going, well, I shouldn't say that. It's you're going to larger companies. That
Often, yeah, it shifts. Yeah, yeah.
and then, but I will say then, going back to customer service, like Lulu has decent customer service, but it's generally an email you send out, and then you'll get an email later on.
Hmm.
And generally, I've gotten things corrected back and forth by email. Mixam, I've had reasonable, they'll check your proofs for like bleed, um,
Hmm.
and a couple other things, but in general, you're on your own. Like you said, if your spine's off, your placement of images is off, they're not going to flag anything. They're just looking for very obvious production problems. So, and your level of support's pretty low. But it's also everything's on the website. You can check very easy. But then, if you want to go to generally a larger company, then your options are then it's a little different situation.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I've and I've also read where somebody was complaining about these sites not having the ability to just noodle around and get pricing.
Mm.
and they felt angered but once you're going to these larger companies, you're 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 like you're a business, and
Mhm.
it's not it's not we're all individuals, but it's not like individual consumer level. This is now you're a business dealing with another business,
Right.
and along those terms.
Yeah. 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 I really liked so one of the first projects that I helped with several years ago, we used Print Ninja, which is they're I think based out of China, but they also have a US like support team. And what I really like about them is that their website is very user friendly and you can get quotes, but they're a big offset printing hub, right? Like it's not for small batch. But we went with them because we could quickly get pricing, and the pricing was not as like looking back, it's definitely more expensive than ordering from China through like another company like a long pack or whatever, typically. But we were able to order 1,000 books and I think 800 books in another thing, hardcovers, and design it exactly how we wanted. And we had a great experience working with them to get all of our files over there and to see proofs, and just communication was excellent. So if you are curious about like what is a hardcover book going to cost me to make, or what is a specialty book, and you don't have the options through Mixam or something, like maybe you want to have like a foil treatment or something like that. Print Ninja is a good option, and then just always know that if you want to put in the time and you have the order quantity, you could always then go the extra mile to go with, an even deeper in the weeds company like a long pack or something to get an even better rate. But you've also went with another. You kind of have a step in between that, between Print Ninja and Long Pack. You went with a what is it, Walsworth here in the States?
Yeah, so I put in a request for quotes for several companies. But what I will say is once you get to this level, then it becomes so like if you go to Mixam, you do have some like choices of you have choices of like what type of laminate you want on your cover,
Hmm.
paperweight, and a few other things. That's it. Everything else is you get what you get.
Yeah,
Where, but once you go to these larger companies, there's a lot of options. And
yeah,
at the point where you may not even know all your options.
yeah,
The point is they may not even understand that you don't know all the options, so
yeah.
it in the and so it can be a little bit confusing because it's the way they discuss things and the way they quote things is in a manner that's, if you're not accustomed to, can be a bit bewildering.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like, the board weight for your hardcover, there's different board weights. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, there's a whole series of things that are involved. But I think though, in general, what you'll do is you'll be talking to a salesperson and you'll tell them what you want, and then somebody will get back to you in the next day or two with a quote.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you'll maybe have a bunch of questions, or you'll adjust for that, and you'll have another discussion.
It's the same thing with long pack, and it really is useful to have a friend of yours that's done all of this before, right? Like if you know somebody who's done a hardcover or whatever through the same company or a similar one, like when we just did a long pack order, Brian Collin is a guy that is a friend of mine, and I was reaching out to him and be like, hey, they quoted me like you just talked about board weight, right? And I'm like, they quoted me like a two, is that the right? And he's like, oh, you should do a three or like whatever, like that
Yeah.
sort of like mine is a three. Oh, well, I could go grab yours off the shelf. Oh yeah, this is what I want. Yeah, I'll just, like respond. Like that's super handy to have that buddy that can kind of like has been through all this before, or at least who is likes all of this technical stuff a little bit more than some of us do. It can kind of help make sure that you don't miss something blatant. So like, yeah, Brian, I just send him all of our quotes out. Like, could you look through this and tell me if you think that all the technical specs make sense for what we're trying to do?
Yeah, because you could go to them and saying, "Well, I want what's right for an RPG product." Well, they print everything and anything. So for
Yeah.
them, they're not necessarily in tune with, oh, I want something that feels like Blades in the Dark book. Okay, there's no way they're going to understand that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And so, and the thing is what I regret is I did not get a spine board on my latest book, which I didn't realize. I assumed it came. I didn't know. I assumed because I got a POD from I think it was Lulu. I can't remember which one, but it came with a spine board, and I thought the one I got from Waldsworth would have a spine board because I didn't know that there was. I just assumed that's the way it was going to be. I didn't think otherwise, and it didn't come with a spine board. And I was like, and we discussed it. And it's like, then I start looking at other books on my shelf, and like some books have spine boards, some books don't. It's
Yeah.
there's no default of
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. 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 So for those listening at home, if you are saying what's a spine board, it's literally the piece of board that makes the spine of your book rigid and rectangular.
Yes.
And if you don't have it, it still may at some points look rectangular, but it's just the fold of the paper and then the binded pages that are giving that. And when you open it, it kind of, especially, it looks like it's more rounded in general because there's nothing there to keep that paper rigid
Yeah.
and around a fold. So it's not it's not it's just going to look different on your shelf. Like I have, like you say, I have several of both. But if you look at like a D&D book, they're all going to have spine board. Um, but yeah, it's just yeah. Would you even think about that? No, because that's not like every option in Mixam and every option in blah 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 are going to come with a spine board, I believe. So like,
Yeah. Then you order 800 copies and you got what you got.
yeah, yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
It doesn't make the book inferior, but I think the problem is that at the size that we have, so my bigger project I'm going to be doing, I probably won't have a spine board on. um, because I'm trying to mimic other books that are of a certain genre or type,
sure.
and they don't have spine boards. So I don't want a spine board on that one. But this one of its size, I think it needed a spine board to retain its shape
Yeah.
properly.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
so functionality works great. So, but anyway, so that's what's hard is because, what I really wanted is something to look very much like an OSC book, where those are all that look, even though
Hmm.
it was an OSC book. So that's kind of can be the downfall is you're in a very technical with lots of options and there's nothing standard.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But what you do gain is the level of custom. So at least for Walsworth, the level of support that I had was fantastic to a level that I cannot, you know, I mean, most excellent. So I have the email addresses and the phone numbers of the person that reviews my files, of the salesperson, of the person that does quotes, of the production manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
All those people I'm in contact with at different stages. And anytime I need them, I can call that person. I
Yeah.
call Charlotte. Charlotte, I don't know what to do here. She's like, you need to move this over such that. Charlotte, how's it look now? It looks great. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's something to be said as far as I don't know what that monetary number is, but there is a certain number where you know the people, you're dealing with the people, and what also was found very interesting is these are all like older people too. So,
Yeah.
and which
Well, yeah, I forgot the very first book that I did a print run with my local printer. And like, yeah, they didn't even have a laminate machine big enough to do an 8.5 by 11 book in their plant. So they had to send it to Tulsa, which is like an hour and a half away. They drove my order down to Tulsa with other things that they couldn't do fully. They drove all my paper covers down to Tulsa, and then Tulsa laminated it for them, and then they brought it back. But yeah, I mean, like that's the thing about locals is that and I know you're not talking about Walsworth isn't local, but that like there's a level of company where like I could pick up the phone and I could call Bill from my local shop, and talk to him about the project, or he would bring by a cover before it went to laminate and be like, "Do you
Yeah.
like, like that's a level that maybe that's super valuable to you." And yeah, place sounds like a place like Walsworth and whatnot, or local places will really give you that. Local places, though, are almost always going to be the most expensive out of everything. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I did a number, so I did a request for quotes of several companies, and it varies. And I think Walsworth came out to being um, at the most reasonable at the
Mhm.
moment, but that can all change depending on your product too. So, it's just there's a bit more hassle with putting out I mean, because it's to send out an email with all your specs, it's kind of a hassle to do that. But I mean, but really what you're going to need to do, and I'll be doing this with future projects too, is just it does pay to send out for quotes because you just don't know if there's going to be, some serious differences.
Yep. Yep.
The reason I went with Walsworth is when I was talking to or I was listening to the Goodman Games had that forum, and they're the ones that they would do smaller press runs,
Hmm.
and so I did 800 for Dark Visions, but I'll be planning on doing 800 or 500 for the Omnibus.
Omnibus. Yeah.
But what I'll say is with these, whenever you're dealing with offset press, is more so than with your print on demands, is your prices are kind of front loaded. So the more copies you print,
Yeah.
then they get cheaper
Yeah. Yeah.
because it just takes a lot of time and investment and energy to make the plates, to get the machine set up, to lock in your time. But once that machine's running,
Yeah.
as long as you keep that machine running, the longer you get it to run, the overall cost will go down dramatically.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then you have to
Exactly.
choose. Do you want your average cost to be, $3 a book, $5 a book, or $8 a book? It just depends on how much of your house you want to fill up with cartons of books.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And there's not a right or wrong answer there, unless you're buying more than you're going to sell in like 2 years. And then you're probably made the wrong decision because even the bigger companies like like if you think about like Modifius or like well, you talked about Zweihander before or whatever, right? Like that these game publishers that are doing a lot of books and have a game in a lot of locations. They are not doing print runs that are going to hold them over for years. They're doing print runs that will last. Like you talked about the starter set being sold out. Well, that's the third run of
Oh,
the starter
wow.
set, right? So it's now fully sold out and they're not doing another print run, but like that was the third run of it, right? Like in 5 years or whatever.
Oh, that's fantastic then. I thought it was
Yeah,
just 5 years to sell out the first run. Like, my goodness.
yeah. But that the thing of it is like if you're buying if you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, well, I would these the next thousand like I'm buying 500 books and they're $8 a piece, but the next another thousand of them, well, those books are only going to be $3 a piece. Well, can you sell 1,000 books in the next 2 years? And if the answer is no, I can only sell 500. Well, then you should not be. Then you're gonna have 500 bucks sitting in your office at the end of 2 years, and it's going to be very hard to sell those last 500 bucks.
Well, and I
So
think what it comes down to is I'm able to sell through Kickstarters, but I also have to look and say, realistically, how long, do I think I'm going to be doing this? And, it's like right now I could see myself doing this for 5 years. I'm not thinking selling for 5 years, but, you know, you buy a whole bunch of books, and you're like, if you don't think you're going to continually be pushing hard,
yeah.
you better not be ordering a bunch of
And
books.
are you going to be pushing that book
Yes.
super hard,
Yes.
right? Like that's the thing is like you could see a world where you're still making books 5 years from now, but are you going to be pushing Gary's Appendix 1
Yes. Or probably
really
even worse
hard?
than that, like it'd be somewhere in the middle, like 4 or 7,
Yes, exactly right. Are
be
you going to be
like,
pushed? So you're going to be like, do you really want to have 400 extra Gary's Appendix 3 sitting in your shelves in 3 years? The answer is no, right? Because that's when you're going to be like, man, maybe we should do a box and like just say you can fill a box for $5 or whatever, right? Like you're going to start thinking about clearing those suckers out.
Yeah, well, that's what's hard on the quotes I get from Waldsworth is check the box for another 1,000, and you look at that price like, well, that's a good price, but yeah, no. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could see it for certain things. Like I've done it in the past where I've been like, I'm gonna take this gamble, I'm gonna do it, and I've been like, yeah, that paid off. Like, oh, I feel like this is an add-on that's gonna sell really well in other products ongoing. Okay, well, let's just roll it. It's cheap, and I'm just gonna buy 1,000 of them and see. And I've been pleasantly surprised several times about how well that has happened. But I've also like ordered 1,000 of something in the past and been like, this was too many. This was too many, and it took 4 years to sell through them, and that was 2 years too long. So,
oh, the other thing I will say too with a larger company like Walsworth is you can pretty much do any single thing you want cover wise, paper wise you want. They even cut like stamp. You have things cut out of your cover.
hmm
You want an oval cut out of the center. You want a jagged
yeah,
thing on the edge. Then you want things embossed. You want things with the foil stamped. You want them both. You want a like a pearlescent cover.
yeah,
You want ridges on. I mean, you really want anything. You pay for it, but you can do really about anything.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you really was have this crazy idea that you want to do something really spectacular for this one-time project, you don't mind spending the money, they can do it.
hmm hmm Yeah. Well, there you go. You have like a bunch of different ideas and options for where you can go for printing. I probably people were tuning into this being like, yeah, they're going to talk about tariffs a lot because
Yeah,
that's book manufacturing. Uh, you'll notice that of everything that we talked about, only two of them were international.
yeah.
And you should only really be looking at international for north of 500 and really north of 800 or 1,000. So if you're not in those numbers, don't worry about it. Just pray that the tariff situation, the world situation in general, doesn't so dramatically affect domestic printing that all of the things that we just told you become invalid in the next few months. But I don't. I think by and large, prices may go up a bit, maybe significantly, but still, it's gonna the people that we're pointing you towards are gonna be the most reasonable or the best options for you 6 months from now, no matter what.
And I think the two is, you need to, I'm not all into one form of printing or another. And so even as I expand out, I don't plan necessarily using Walsworth for all my hardcovers. I'm going to probably use Mixam for some of my hardcovers.
hmm
So I think, whatever it is, people out there are wanting to do, it may not just be one thing. It could be multiple different options depending on the project.
hmm hmm
Because I found that, there's some things that, you can bundle for sometimes to say, but like there's some things that, it just can't beat the price of Mixam. Well, I shouldn't say versus like say like some of these other larger companies. So it's a matter of understanding, I think, what you're wanting, what your needs are, costs, and making the right decision.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, I think we pretty much covered everything I know.
Yeah, that feels like a good haul. I feel like the only thing we didn't go into heavy depth of that I feel like I could speak to is long pack, and I feel like the reality is that's such a like long pack. When I first talked to them, their statement was, "Are you going to do at least 1,000 of everything that you do?" And then that was kind of like their like, we want to hear you say yes before before we take you fully into the fold. And I appreciated that, but also that's what I would tell everybody's like, I think most people probably turning in are not at that point yet, and so don't worry about that sort of an option. But if you are, I think if you're looking for that, Longpack's been great to work with and easy to chat with, very efficient in their quotes, lots of options. But it goes back to what Jeff said about you need to know what you want and communicate what you want very specifically because the sky's the limit with them on what they can do. And there's not a standard, so to speak. So
Yeah, and I think, it's the same thing with like manufacturing. I mean, everybody has, I guess, their specialties or sweet spots. So if a company's set up to do long runs, that's generally where they're most efficient.
Yeah.
So that they, and that's why some companies won't bother with less than 1,000 because they've got the capacity, got the machines for high production runs, and that's where they make their money. They don't, it's not the setups or other smaller companies like they don't mind doing that because that's how they fill in their gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So, all righty. Well, is there anything you want to close with?
I don't think so. I think well, I mean, I just if you should just go check out Jeff Jones' account on Kickstarter because if the Omnibus isn't still going, there'll be something else that's
It will be
launching soon.
something.
So yeah, I'll just go check out over there. And we're launching the Devoured Labyrinth
Oh,
for Shadow Dark. So give that
uh,
a gander too.
so do you know about the time frame that will be launching?
Into May is what we're targeting. Into May, 1st
Ooh,
of June, that range. So yeah, we got a month from when we're recording this. We got a month or so still, so we'll see.
okay. I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, till next time, Zach.
Thanks a
Take
lot.
care.